For more than 3 decades, America believed it knew Marie Osmond completely. She appeared as a constant smile on television screens, a reassuring presence whose voice felt safe, familiar, and dependable. In an era when families gathered around the TV, Marie represented innocence, warmth, and certainty, a reminder that not everything in entertainment had lost its grounding. To the public, she was more than a performer. She was an idea, a symbol of wholesomeness untouched by the harsh edges of fame. But what audiences saw was only one version of her life. Away from the cameras existed a quieter reality, one without applause or reassurance. It was a life shaped by expectations placed too early, by emotional discipline mistaken for strength, and by the understanding that vulnerability had no place in her public role. For years, Marie lived between two worlds, one carefully presented and one carefully concealed. A childhood without stillness. Marie Osmond's lessons in endurance began almost as soon as she entered the world. Born on October 13, 1959, she grew up as the only daughter in a large, disciplined household where music was not a hobby, but a responsibility. While most children were learning through play, Marie was learning through performance. Studio lights replaced playgrounds, and schedules replaced spontaneity. From a very young age, she understood that reliability mattered more than rest, and that doing well meant never complaining. Childhood, as most understand it, never fully arrived. Instead, she grew up inside a system that valued precision, presentation, and constant readiness. Her identity was shaped early and firmly, leaving little room to discover who she might be outside of expectations. She learned how to smile on cue, speak politely, and carry herself with poise long before she understood why. Over time, that discipline quietly taught her to place her own needs last, learning to be perfect. As Marie grew older, the demands placed on her became more exacting. Perfection was no longer implied, it was measured. Appearance, tone, and behavior were monitored closely, reinforcing the belief that approval depended on compliance. Praise came when standards were met, and silence followed when they were not. Over time, Marie internalized the idea that being valued meant being flawless. She became exceptionally good at meeting expectations while disconnecting from her own feelings. The public saw consistency and charm, but inside, she learned to suppress discomfort rather than express it. This emotional restraint was not taught as harm, but as professionalism. Still, it came at a cost. Without realizing it, Marie began to treat herself as something to manage rather than someone to care for. By the time she reached her teenage years, she had mastered performance, but had little space left for uncertainty, rest, or self-questioning, all essential parts of growing up. Fame arrives before freedom. When Marie entered her teens, fame intensified rather than eased her burden. As the Donny Marie Show became a national sensation, she was celebrated as the face of youthful optimism. Each performance reinforced her public image, yet narrowed her private freedom. Success required constant visibility, leaving little room to pause or reflect. The demands of live television, rehearsals, and appearances created an environment where endurance was mistaken for resilience. Despite her achievements, Marie struggled with self-doubt, particularly around her body and worth. Industry expectations encouraged constant comparison, quietly convincing her she needed to change in order to stay relevant. Control became her coping mechanism in a life where so much felt predetermined. What appeared as discipline from the outside was, internally, an attempt to reclaim agency. The applause was real, but it did not quiet the growing sense that she was disappearing behind the role she played so well. When success doesn't feel safe. As her career flourished, Marie reached heights few young performers ever experience. Yet stability did not arrive with success. Instead, the pressure to maintain her image intensified, leaving even less room for imperfection. She learned how to perform strength convincingly, even when exhausted. The public saw continuity, while privately she struggled with emotional fatigue. Achievements accumulated, but relief did not. Over time, Marie realized that success alone could not heal unresolved pain or replace emotional safety. She fulfilled every professional expectation, yet felt increasingly distant from herself. The contrast between public praise and private struggle became sharper, making it harder to ask for help. In a culture that celebrated her reliability, admitting difficulty felt like failure. Rather than slow down, she pushed forward, believing perseverance was the only acceptable response. The result was a life that looked complete from the outside but felt increasingly fragile within. Marriage, motherhood, and the quiet weight. Marriage initially seemed like a path toward balance, a chance to step away from relentless visibility. Marie hoped that building a family would bring the steadiness she had long searched for. While motherhood filled her life with purpose, it also revealed emotional vulnerabilities she had never been allowed to explore. The responsibility of caring for others magnified feelings she had kept contained for years. She experienced periods of deep exhaustion and emotional overwhelm that were difficult to articulate, especially in a time when such struggles were rarely discussed openly. Instead of relief, she felt confusion and guilt for not feeling as fulfilled as expected. Asking for help did not come easily. Admitting difficulty felt incompatible with the role she had played her entire life. Over time, silence became heavier, not lighter. The weight she carried quietly shaped her days, even as she continued to appear composed to the world. Speaking when silence no longer worked. Eventually, Marie reached a point where concealment was no longer possible. Physical and emotional exhaustion demanded acknowledgement. Rather than retreat entirely, she chose a different path, one that involved honesty. When she began speaking openly about emotional health, she did so carefully and responsibly, without blame or spectacle. Her words resonated because they came from experience, not performance. By sharing her struggles, she offered reassurance to others who felt isolated by similar feelings. She did not present herself as healed or perfected, only as someone still learning. This openness marked a turning point, allowing her to reconnect with herself and redefine strength. Instead of being admired for flawlessness, she became respected for authenticity. Speaking did not erase pain, but it changed her relationship with it. For the first time, silence was no longer her only option. Loss that changed everything. Life delivered a loss that no amount of preparation could soften. Grief reshaped Marie's world, slowing everything she once rushed through. In that period, performance lost its urgency, and presence became essential. She allowed herself to step away from constant visibility and chose a quieter environment, one where reflection felt possible. Grief did not offer closure, but it stripped away pretense. What remained was clarity about what mattered most. She focused on connection, health, and daily routines that grounded her. The pace of her life changed, not out of resignation, but intention. She no longer felt compelled to meet external expectations at the expense of her well-being. Loss did not define her, but it deepened her compassion and resolve. From that point forward, she approached life less as something to manage and more as something to be fully present within. A life integrated at last. Today, Marie Osmond lives with a sense of integration that once felt unreachable. The public figure and the private individual no longer exist separately. She continues to perform, but on her own terms, guided by readiness rather than obligation. Her voice carries experience rather than perfection, and audiences respond to its honesty. She values health, family, and presence over constant achievement. Aging is no longer something to resist, but something to accept with clarity. Marie's legacy is not defined by records sold or shows completed, but by the space she created for truth. She demonstrated that strength can include rest, and courage can include speaking openly. Her story is not one of flawless survival, but of continuity, choosing to remain engaged with life despite pain. In doing so, she offered others permission to be human, imperfect, and still worthy.